Hello and welcome to the Women in STEM event hosted by MorTorq Robotics. Thank you so much for joining us.
Today we will get to hear from 4 successful women in STEM careers. We will discuss their journeys to their accomplishments and how they work to promote young women in STEM.
Thank you so much for joining us.
To start off, please introduce yourself to our audience, telling us a bit about who you are and where you work. Let's start off with Dr. Shuster, then Ms. Lostroscio, Dr. Newman, and Ms. Lynch.
I'm Bentley Shuster. I am a postdoctoral researcher at Columbia University. I am a biomedical engineer, and we're engineering bacteria to treat tumor and cancer patients. I started at Beverly High, actually, so I was on the MorTorq team when I was in high school. I then went to NYU for my undergrad and PhD, and I'm at Columbia now.
Hi, I'm Kaitlin Lostroscio. I'm an engineer at NASA's Johnson Space Center, and I work in the robotics division, focused more on biomechanical applications of human exploration projects. I'm an alumni of FRC and studied mechanical engineering at the University of South Florida before coming here to the Johnson Space Center.
Hi, I'm Dr. Charlotte Newman. I'm a developmental optometrist practicing for 25 years. I practice in Beverly Hills and I specialize in vision therapy, seeing kids and adults with functional vision problems and treating them for what may be needed to help them in their life, work, and academics. The best part of it is seeing the kids and the adults and being able to help them with their vision.
My name is Colleen Lynch. I'm the Medical Science Academy Coordinator at Beverly Hills High School. This is my 20th year at Beverly High. I built and started the academy this is our 9th year. And so we expose students to both clinical and research in our Intro to Med class and also our biotechnology class. So we're trying to expose students and girls to both clinical and research, and it's been amazing. So we can talk more about it.
We will begin by asking questions each person will answer, then we will go into more specified individual questions. So to start off, did you have a role model growing up? Who or what inspired you to work in the field that you do?
So I didn't actually know a lot of scientists growing up, and no one in my family went to college. So I was a first generation college student. And I actually had a science role model in my undergrad because I had a cool TA in one of my classes. And I was pre-med because I sort of thought that was the only thing you could do with a bio degree. And I got to experience life in a lab and see that it could actually be really creative and really thought-provoking. And I loved the idea of doing something different every day and being able to ask these questions and look for answers that other people haven't found yet. I was really lucky because she opened up an entirely different world for me, which was lab work and research. And it seemed so different than what I assumed science would be like. And I feel like it was a little late to have that kind of a role model that was another woman that I felt like I could look up to and aspire to be, but I felt like I met her at like the perfect time. And because of her, I was introduced to genetics and genomics and all of the things that I ended up sort of getting an interest in, and it really led me to where I am now.
I was definitely inspired by my environment growing up on the Space Coast, getting to see shuttle launches all the time, something I took for granted growing up, but that definitely instilled the passion for the path that I went down. But my father worked at the Kennedy Space Center, so he definitely planted the seed as well. But really, participation in FIRST Robotics was what inspired me to go down this path versus other options I was other things I was passionate about. And I also had a great robotics mentor and teacher, Mrs. P, who really introduced me to a lot of opportunities to gain exposure to STEM and start projects on my own, even outside of the core first robotics activities. So that really got me to explore the options more thoroughly. And she was definitely a big inspiration for me going down this path.
I'd say for me, my role model was my oldest sister. I come from a family of 5, so I always looked up to her. And being younger, the youngest in the family, she was a midwife. So from there on, I knew I wanted something in the health field. And my other 2 siblings, they became dentists, which it's great for them, but I still don't connect to that. And I love what I do. The first person that I think really helped me with wanting to do optometry was my first optometrist. When I got my first pair of glasses, that's when I felt like this is what I wanted to do. I enjoyed the visit, and I shadowed other doctors, and that's where I figured out this is the path I want to take. So that's where I come from.
I started off in healthcare early on after my undergrad, and then I went into teaching. And basically what I built is something that combines the two, where it's taking my interest in healthcare and also exposing kids to the possibilities in medicine, whether it be clinical or research, which I don't think a lot of kids, at least I didn't have that kind of exposure or experience in high school, and really getting them to explore what they might like and what they might be interested in high school as they go on to college. So it's almost, for me, it was about exposure, and I almost feel like I needed more exposure as a young high school student to be able to make those decisions. So MSA's like a extension of that.
Thank you for all your responses. The next question is, what additional support would you have liked to have during your education and the beginning of your career?
Yeah, so I think that I kind of wished that someone had told me that you were going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, and that there wasn't kind of one right path to get somewhere. There was this constant idea, I think, especially coming from my family who didn't really know what academia is like and what science career is like. There was just a push that if you do this, this is the only path that you can go down, and these are the only things that you can do. But I feel like the possibilities are really endless when it comes to STEM. And I think that it would have been really nice, I think even in high school, to have understood how interdisciplinary STEM is, because knowing engineering, knowing physics, knowing chemistry are all things that I use every single day, even though technically I come from a biology background. And I think that like just pushing this drive to get people, and especially girls, to understand that like learning a little bit of everything is useful, collaborating with people is useful. There's no particular way to do it correctly, and that you'll get there. There's no rush. And so I think just having those voices would have been really helpful, and having things like this would have been really helpful, things that maybe didn't exist when I was in high school.
Yeah, I'll second that. There's not one path or timeline for getting to where you're going to go. For me, when starting college, I was definitely excited to be able to focus on studies alone versus all the extracurricular activities, having through high school. But I was also told that you get an internship after your junior year. That's the timeline to follow. But I wish someone told me that there are internship opportunities earlier on, as soon as you start college too. It doesn't need to be just in the summer. You can take a semester off to do those type of things. And so, I felt like I missed out on a lot of opportunities by not pursuing those extra opportunities for internships or additional projects outside of coursework that could have just added to the amount of experience that could have continued to grow past participation in first in high school. So I'd say look for those opportunities, And also, yeah, for me, having the internships I eventually got later in my college career, combined with research experience and those continued work on projects, were really what led me to my career. So above and beyond the coursework. So, yeah, I wish someone had told me that it's good to continue doing all of those extracurricular things as you go forward to apply what you're learning.
Going to college and graduate school, that was an amazing experience. And I think I pretty much learned everything I had to learn to be able to come out and practice. I think as a professional who started her own business like about 11 years ago, the one thing I was not familiar with was running the business aspect of it. I knew really well how to take care of the patients, but the business part is something that I wish I had some more education in to help me grow the practice in that aspect. That's the only thing. So if I had to go back, it would possibly be, more education in running your own practice, the business part of it, but not necessarily the educational part of it with interacting with patients and helping patients.
I would say so I think if I think back on picking my major in my undergrad, and thinking I knew what I wanted to be, but and then getting a job while I was in college and realizing this is not exactly what I thought it would be. So the exposure, again, I feel like is so invaluable for anyone who may love a subject but may not know about how that works in the industry, right? So in connecting that, because the content is not the experience. And so that's, looking back on my own experiences, I realized as almost a graduate of my undergrad, I didn't know anything. I didn't get exposure to what it was really like. And it makes you question, well, is this what I'm interested in? And the truth is I was interested in it, but I didn't know enough about all of the possibilities. And I think that's the important piece, that it's important for us to expose young people to the possibilities so that they can then make the best informed choices about what's a fit for them, what's a good fit for them as they choose their pathway. As there's so many pathways. There's so many clinical research. I mean, there's a ton of pathways, no matter what you're talking about. But again, I think it's the exposure and to hone those interests. So that was kind of what happened to me and what inspired me to those experiences for young people.
Thank you. Our next question is, what is the most rewarding aspect of your job?
Yeah, so I work on an academic campus, which is nice because it means that I'm surrounded by everyone. It's really multidisciplinary. There's a lot of age groups and experience groups in my lab specifically, which I love because it's a bioengineering department, which means you have biologists, you have engineers, you have people who have very different, we joke that there's like a Venn diagram of everyone in our lab, and there might be someone on this end who has no overlap with somebody on that end. And that's where I find it to be the coolest, because we can talk and collaborate and really learn from each other. So I feel like I'm learning every day. And I get to take in undergrads and high school students and expose them to things that, like we've been talking about already, I didn't have that exposure to. And I really wish that I had, because the minute that you think you know what you want, you sort of close a lot of other doors around you. And it's so unnecessary to do that. I mean, I collaborate with people in a space center in Germany doing a whole different project than the one that I'm working on now. I've worked with people in all different fields because there is no end to what you can do. And I think that it is so gratifying to get to talk to all people of all different walks of life, doing all different types of science, and maybe not even science, but just other fields that you feel like you can help each other grow in, like business or anything else, right? It's really cool to be able to learn new things every day, and also feel like you can teach other people the lessons that you've learned as you grow.
Yeah, for me, one of the just rewarding aspects of working in the field of spaceflight is just that you have these missions. You can always have your own personal reason for why you love doing what you're doing, but having a mission that there's a collective goal that everyone's working toward, I just find that really rewarding because there's always a purpose behind everything that you're doing. And there are many projects that are long term, and hopefully they'll get to come into effect, and you'll get to see a project in flight or on the ground supporting to help space flight. But it's just exciting to develop technologies and kind of work on that research and development for really your the reward of accomplishing something new and just creating is very exciting aspect of the job.
And I'd have to say, for me, as a developmental optometrist, the most rewarding part of it is that I'm helping patients with their hidden vision problems that have not been diagnosed through routine eye exams. And because of the way we eye screen for it, or these patients have been referred to me, we find the issue and we are able to help them for their academic, for school, or for their job, work. And we see results. I've had a couple of patients even from Beverly High coming to me, and when they came, they had double vision. There was nobody could figure out what's going on, but their symptoms was basically lots of headache, eye strain, eye fatigue, couldn't concentrate. And these are smart kids that they were taking all these AP classes, and they just couldn't do it. They're like, I can't function, I can't read. So when I tested for it and I'm like, you have double vision, and they said, I thought this is sort of normal. I'm like, it's not normal. So when we diagnose it and we treat the patient and we see the result, that now I can let them, sort of fly and go and do what they want to do without having all those symptoms on daily basis. That's the most rewarding part. Or even working with little kids that have these issues, and as far as balance goes, they're not able to balance, and everything is connected. The eyes, the ears, everything is so connected when we diagnose these, and we can help the kids or the adults that have had concussion and they're experiencing a lot of the difficulty reading, losing their place, focusing, comprehension. And these are people that have had no problems in the past, but due to concussion, they're now having issues, and MRI, CT scan is not showing anything. But then again, when we test for it and we find these, and then we work with the patients and we do therapy and we see the change that's happening, it changes someone's life. So every day when I see that, that's the most rewarding part of it.
I would say the most rewarding part for me is when I have students that you can see their passion has been ignited. They took maybe content that they learned in one of our courses, and then they have this experience outside. A lot of we built a lot of community outreach projects all around LA with particular industries, and kids get into all these different kinds of programs. And when I see that they have applied what they've learned, and then their intrinsic motivation is driving them beyond just one experience, that they're building relationships within the medical community, or they're taking the initiative to find more exposure. And I think that's kind of, I can't even describe how rewarding it is. I mean, I guess that's why we're doing what we're doing, so it's great.
Thank you. What is one of the most difficult challenges you've had to overcome in your career, and how were you able to overcome it?
I will say that there are challenges I have not yet overcome, and that there are a lot of things that are difficult in many different ways. So, the academics of it are already kind of tough, and going to school can be exhausting, especially when you've been in school for 20, 30 years almost. And I think that my biggest struggle has, and still is to some extent, imposter syndrome. And I know that that is something that gets brought up a lot when it comes to women in STEM. but sometimes it's this feeling that you're going to be found out and you're not supposed to be somewhere, or you didn't actually earn your place somewhere. And you could do a lot of things to help, and it really helps to have a good support group. And I think I sort of made my family, my science family, around my place of work. And I also surround myself with a lot of people who aren't competitive or in STEM with me. So it's good to have that too. But I think it can be tough to accelerate in your career, especially if you don't know that much about it, or you haven't been or don't have the exposure to some of the STEM fields that you're in, or you feel like you're a minority in the group that you're in. And so the most important thing is to have good open relationships, and especially to pick. So for instance, for me, my current boss in my postdoctoral research is amazing, and he's really supportive and is very open. And I think that was really helpful and has helped me get over that a lot, because during my PhD, I struggled with some of the professors that I was working with. And it really helps to have, at least one, but if not a couple of other people who can encourage you and sort of just, help you when you're down, and to ask for help. Like, it's okay to be weak sometimes or need help sometimes. And I think that there's this stigma that like, oh, you have it all figured out and you definitely know what you're doing all the time. And yeah, that's definitely not true. So it's good to, and constantly grow and work on yourself and see, where you're at, and check in with yourself often.
Yeah, I'm still early in my career, so I know there's a lot more challenges to come. But to talk about a challenge that's kind of reoccurring for me, it's difficult but exciting at the same time. It involves both technical and interpersonal aspects. Is that there are often these projects where there's a short amount of time to plan. I personally help to plan data collections and research type studies. And there'll be a small window where I find out about the system that we're going to test. There's going to be a quick time to complete the test, and it's coming up really fast. And so I have to learn about the system. I need to make plans about what we're going to test based on the qualities of that system, and then work across interdisciplinary teams to try to make sure that the plan is sound and works for what we need to accomplish. So in a generic way, yeah, just making sure it all comes together. And so the way that this challenge is repeatedly able to overcome is just by embracing the challenge, and then dedicating that time to plan, use best science and engineering practices to, review and make sure that the plan is good, and that, you're checking out all your systems, making sure they're going to work. And so, but a big aspect of this is communication, right? Communication is key. And especially working across interdisciplinary groups, where you have to merge ideas, overcome any workplace politics, and find solutions that are best for the project in the end. So yeah, it's kind of a cyclic thing, but yeah, once you're used to, you can apply some of those same strategies, even though it might be a different system. You can bridge those types of strategies to new projects.
I think one of the most difficult challenges that I would say I still experience is work-life balance. Being a mother of four, a daughter, a wife, being available for everyone, that's the most challenging part. So when I started, my kids were younger, of course, and there were times I had to leave the practice at a certain time to pick them up, let's say 2 o'clock, 2:30, to take them to different, after school activities. I would be the mother going to 3 different schools. That was challenging, but I had to do what I had to do, and I had to balance that. And I feel like even though they're older now, that challenge is still there. I'd say to overcome it, I ask for help when I really need it. I ask for help, anyone that can help. I'm like, please, if you can help, with certain things. And as far as, running a practice, again, I belong to Optometry Divas. We're a group of women that all have our own practices, and we have our families and kids. So sharing ideas, I think that has been really amazing, to be able to share ideas and seeing the challenges that everyone is going through and seeing how we can help each other. So talking to others, I think definitely is helpful, and asking for help when you can is the other best thing. So if you have a family member that's willing to be there for you and help you, it really helps.
I would agree with you, Dr. Newman, about that life work balance. I have 2 kids of my own, and I started MSA when my son was born. So I had a newborn and I had a 3-year-old, and I was learning new things. I did not have any experience in biomed at all, and biotechnology was all new to me. So while maintaining coursework, like a full-time job, and learning this new skill set that was quite challenging and very specific, while also having young children at that time, I would say that was the biggest challenge, was building, a program from scratch, and then also just maintaining everything else at the same time. But it gets easier, and new challenges will always come up, whether it's funding or trying to explain what you do to people that may not understand, and then also politics of why you need the type of support that your program may require, when people may not be educated on what it requires to do the work. So those are some challenges. So yeah, hopefully we'll overcome them.
Our last general question is, what advice would you give to young girls wanting to pursue a career in STEM?
So I'm sure that everybody pursuing a career in STEM understands that it takes work. But I think that one of the most important things I can say is you deserve to be there just as much as anybody else does. And also don't, as I said before, don't close any doors before you've gone further, because you might be surprised where you end up and what you end up doing. Just be willing and open to learning a lot of different things. Don't give up the things that you love to do that aren't necessarily in the classroom. You should still experience the world and your life and have a healthy work-life balance. And I think that the way that we communicate and understand science is changing a lot. And so I think that it's also important, if you decide to pursue a career in STEM, to always remember that there are people younger than you even who might be just as confused as you are. So keep that ability to talk about STEM and talk about your own work in a way that's understandable to the community around you, such that you don't feel like the odd one out or somebody who, I often go places and I'll be introduced as like, oh, she's like a microbiology scientist lady. And they immediately go like, I'm gonna go talk to somebody else. And I think it's important to just be able to communicate with people what you do, because it's also great when, it's better when everybody knows more about science, I think, and it's interesting and exciting. But like I was saying before, just don't close any pathway for yourself, and be willing to kind of go with where science takes you and what it interests you, and make a lot of mistakes, because I learn the most from my failed experiments, I think. It's always nice when they work. We're always happy when they work, but the mistakes are what get you, and the failed things are what get you to your answers. And being able to, work with other people and get, when you finally solve something or cure something or discover something, it'll be the most rewarding feeling that you have.
Yeah, and one of the key parts of the question I was thinking about is, wanting to pursue, a career in STEM, and yeah, if you have the interest, there you can find a way and find a place in the end. So yeah, for some that it could mean doing really well in your STEM classes as a sign, but for others that could mean maybe not doing so well in the classes initially, but working on those projects where you're learning and gaining experience differently. And I mean, for me, I remember, going into college, having the ability to learn my math classes alongside the opportunity to apply in my engineering classes, kind of having that reiteration of doing it more and in an applied way was very helpful. And then that led it to being able to be stronger in just later on in my learning experience. So yeah, stick with the interest and continue to pursue, and then it'll all come together with the hard work, of course, put in as well.
I would say to those that are interested is the best thing to do is to have the mentality of, yes, I can do this. I think that's the power that gives you the drive to keep going, and also to talk to others to understand, what are you looking at? Is this something you want to pursue? Speaking to others that are successful in what they're doing and possibly shadowing them is going to be helpful to understand if this is something you want to choose, a path you want to choose later on in life. The other part is, if you fail, don't give up. Just like you mentioned, Bentley, a lot of times we might come to an obstacle and we may fail in something. So I'd say have the ability to pick up from there and learn from that mistake and use that mistake or failure, or however you want to say it, to benefit you later and learn from that. But then don't let it stop you. And, find what you love to do and do it. And don't do something that you're not passionate about. It goes back again to when I was applying to optometry school. My siblings were like, why don't you go to dental school? And I was like, I have no interest in that. And it's so interesting because I had a patient of mine who is very well known, which I can't mention, but I go, my siblings are dentists and you're the dean of somewhere, and I'm still happy with what I'm doing, so to be able to say that after years of practicing is really important. You have to wake up and love what you're doing, because life will take you to places where you go, you might feel down, but because of what you love to do, you will have that energy to pick up and go on. And if you don't like what you do, it's not gonna help you in life. So make sure you choose a path that you enjoy doing, that you wake up every morning and say, I'm happy with my choice. But look and ask and make sure. Don't just go into it, and don't let anyone else tell you what to do.
Yeah, I would reiterate that as well. I think that I would say to people wanting to pursue STEM to seek opportunities anywhere you can, because you don't know until you know. You may think you know, and then you could get there and decide, wow, this is not for me, for whatever reason. For maybe it's the smell of the place. Maybe it's you don't like the sight of blood. It could be you may not know these things about your own personality so that you can find the right fit. So I would say seeking different kinds of opportunities so that you can get the right fit and you can find your passion and find people who have your similar interests. And I would say, like, as far as with MSA over the years, that similar interest, it also forms these bonds with the students that they're pursuing something together, and they can share their interest with each other. And it may be that a student thought that they were interested in a particular subject, and when they did the research on it, they decided, I did this for my presentation, but I decided by learning through it that I don't want to pursue this. But they shared it out with other students that may have never thought to even explore something else, and it could inspire another student to explore that subject or that career or whatever. So I would say keep an open mind. I think that was said before in this group, but keeping an open mind and also just exposure, right? It's about keeping an open mind and exposing yourself to the opportunities that are out there, because the truth is, just like all the women here, there are people willing to share their time to speak about what they love to do. And I don't know if a lot of students realize how gratifying that is for people who work in their fields that they love. So we bring in a lot of guest speakers, and that's a great exchange, so talking with people, asking questions about what you are interested in, or even to find out that you're not interested in something. I think that could be just as valuable. So that's advice I'd give to the students.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to individual questions, starting with Dr. Shuster. You are an alumna of a robotics team 1515. How did the skills you gained on the robotics team influence you later in your career? Did this experience play a role in your decision to become a biomedical engineer?
Yeah, so it's cool to get to talk to you guys because it's been a really long time. I guess it's been like 11 years now since I was on the robotics team. And it's come a really long way too, which I think is great because I remember when I first joined, there were like 3 girls on the build team. And it's really awesome to see how much that has changed. All in all, though, it was really, for me, like the first science extracurricular I had ever done. And I had sort of not realized the amount of teamwork and the amount of, I don't know, it felt like going to a sporting event when you go to a competition, and I realized how much community there was and how much interaction there was. We met people from all over the world. I mean, we were friends with Brazilian teams and teams from Florida, and you got to see sort of their dynamics and your dynamics, and really learning to work with a team, I think, is the best skill set that I took from there, because there's engineering and there are business aspects that you can take from robotics as well, but just the ability for everybody to work in such an interconnected way was, I think, a lesson that I had not yet learned. And then in terms of using that for my own career, I think I had decided to do biology. And so, like I had said before, I felt like, oh, well, that means I have to go on and be a medical doctor, and that's sort of the only thing I can do. And so once I realized that there were other opportunities for me out there, it also made me go, oh, well, I actually really liked engineering and I liked some of these other things. What else is there for me to do? So when I was looking at jobs after my PhD, and I saw that there were ways for me to apply some of these things that were just sort of hobbies for me up until now, and use those towards a career and take this bio knowledge that I have and sort of combine it with something else. It was so cool to go, there's a lot that I loved and remembered from it. It made me continue with physics and engineering throughout my undergrad. And so I do think it shaped it a lot more than I think it would. And I taught a lot and continue to teach as a TA in both of the universities I was at. And I think it's really helpful to, as Colleen was saying earlier, just like there will be undergrads who come to me and go, I really don't think I like this. I don't think I'm going to be a doctor. And they're a sophomore in undergrad. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. There's a lot else that you can do. And maybe there's a hobby that you had in high school that you love that you can integrate into your research or your interests moving forward. So don't let all of those things go, but also if you find that something's not right for you, that's cool too. But definitely just being able to reincorporate that into my life in a way that I think took me to a place I didn't expect I would end up was really great. And I'm glad to see that there are a lot of women in MorTorq. I know that things have changed a lot for you guys, but it's good. It's great to see.
Thank you. Miss Lynch, how do you think teachers can encourage females to pursue STEM careers?
Well, I mean, I think that, through exposure, especially our math, science teachers, they could incorporate some, some careers into their curriculum. I know we do that in MSA a lot. But I do know that there are teachers that are very interested in kind of making those connections between the actual curriculum and where it could lead them. You know, particularly I would say with math and our physical science teachers. So for the engineering piece. So I think, again, exposure and kind of making those connections between, you know, I hear, you know, I've taught other subjects besides MSA, and you get that question of like, why do we have to know this? You know, like how does, and really what they're asking is, how does this apply to anything, you know? And so I think that that question is a valid question for kids, and us teachers, I feel like we should answer it and make those connections between, well, this could lead to your knowledge, or this knowledge actually is applied in this manner, whether it's engineering or science, or, and I think that is one of the most valuable things us teachers can do for kids.
Thank you. Ms. Lostroscio, as a first alumni, did the first robotics competition help you gain confidence in your STEM abilities? And if so, how?
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I was involved in science projects and random technology projects with my family growing up, but yeah, first robotics was definitely the hands-on experience that I needed in order to, gain more interest and ultimately gain confidence to pursue this going forward. So I was in pit crew while I was on my team and got to work with all aspects of the robot. So there was a lot, great opportunities for hands-on experience in a lot of different areas through that way. Kind of a key memory for me during that time was just little examples here and there that gave me a little confidence boost. So a mentor had brought over a new part that was to be integrated with the robot that I hadn't seen before. But I had automatically started to go assemble it. My mentor was like, how'd you know what that was for? And so it was something where that kind of those natural instincts for growing, and that was kind of a sign for me. But as we've been saying during this call, is that it's also a good opportunity to make mistakes and fail, and FRC gave an opportunity and a good environment to kind of work through some of those experiences early on. I'll share a story during so this was world competition. Let me back up. So we had a temporary fix at one of our early competitions in the season where we needed a battery holder to be secured, and we just made it with duct tape and Velcro, and it worked fine. It worked all throughout that competition, and because it had worked, we actually didn't end up making anything new for our subsequent competitions. And then at the world finals, for our division, in the elimination rounds, we had a collision with another robot, and the battery popped out of that holder, got disconnected, smashed some speed controllers, and that was it. So going through, that was something that we could have fixed, right? That was something that really stuck with me, and it encourages better design and encourages to be more thorough in analyses, careful consideration and caution, but really caution to complacency as well. So just because something worked before or it hasn't had an issue yet, doesn't mean, you can ignore it. And so that's something that's important in my career today. So being able to get those experiences both for confidence building, but gaining lessons learned to bring forward for the rest of my life too.
Thank you. Dr. Newman, when did you feel ready to start your own practice? Who or what inspired you to do so?
Thank you. So I started my practice about 11 years ago. And I don't know if I was really ready at that time because, again, my kids were very young, but the opportunity came and we decided to do it. The person that helped me the most, I would say, is my husband. He was very supportive in pursuing that. And the reason I wanted to go into independent optometry was because I wanted to have my own hours, and I found it very difficult to be able to even work part-time with the hours that were being offered, and as well as doing what I wanted to do, which is developmental optometry. It was harder to do so because when you are working with other doctors, ophthalmologists, optometrists, it's a lot of primary eye care exam. You don't delve into the specialty as much. So this gave me the opportunity to do it. And when that chance came, I was like, either I do it now or it's not going to happen. But we decided that, first family and work. That's the way I had to do it. Otherwise, I would have not been able to do it. And I didn't expect to make it, to grow it within the first, second, or third year, because I knew I have the kids. But I did grow it slowly. And where I'm at right now, I'm very happy. And I'm happy that I was, supported with a husband that really encouraged me. And he's the one that, if anything, always said you can do it. So that he was the most helpful one.
Thank you. Ms. Lostroscio, how do you think the FIRST program can attract more females to participate and become interested in engineering?
Yeah. So kind of step back with my introduction to FIRST Robotics. It was from my parents first encouraging me to join. And coming from a small school to a big high school, I remember thinking, I was worried about it being cool, that it wasn't cool. And but as soon as I got my first exposure, I was hooked from that point on. So, how I think since then, FIRST continues to change the perception, I think, but also starting young is important. So outreach, that even FRC teams can do to mentor FIRST Lego League teams and support events is great. Just showing how fun it is via social media. Back during when I was first entering high school, that was when Facebook was coming on board, and so I actually had learned about our robotics team from a newspaper clip. They had an article about it. So, but now, of course, right, we can show all that via social media and other means, and ultimately, those participating can help to encourage friends to join, host other outreach events. So first, creates the programs, right, and the tools. But then, a lot can be up to the teams too, to help and encourage, more to join young as well.
Thank you. Dr. Newman, how do you aim to inspire students to be interested in your field?
I'd say, they're welcome to come and ask me questions and talk to me. I would encourage them to, shadow doctors and see if that's what they want to do. With my daughter, she actually started optometry school just this year. And I encouraged her to shadow other doctors because I don't want her to necessarily see me. I wanted her to see other doctors that are in the field. And when she did shadow the doctors, she said, this is what I want to do, because she was also pre-med. So I would say, talk to me, talk to others, and, be open to getting opinions and ideas and feedback and see what you like to pursue.
Thank you. Dr. Shuster, as a postdoctoral research scientist, you must be always collaborating with others to work on projects. What advice would you give young STEM students about working on a team?
Yeah, so I think competition is always something that people think drives innovation. And I think that is true, but I think that collaboration is maybe even better for that. I always relate it to like two labs trying to solve the same problem and making the same mistakes at the same time and wasting the same amount of time. If you make a mistake, you can go to your teammate and say, well, this thing didn't work. What else can we do? What else can you do? how can we work together to solve it? All of you come in, even in high school, with different sets of knowledge and different things that you feel comfortable with. And so just working with a teammate means that you'll always get more done and you'll always learn more from lots of different perspectives. So while it's important to problem solve on your own, it also is really helpful to problem solve with somebody else, bouncing ideas off of each other and being okay with knowing what you don't know and learning other things. I think that, as I've said multiple times, the mistakes that we have are not just going to be learning experiences for yourself, but they can also be learning experiences for other people. So working in a team and building off of everybody else's trials and errors is really going to be helpful. And like I said before, everything is interdisciplinary. Don't expect that you need to be an expert at everything. Find a thing that you really love and really find interest in and get really good at that. And then people can come to you for help when their problem involves that answer, just as much as you can go to somebody else who will get really good at the thing that they're good at, because everybody's expertise will help. And I think that it's so important to work with a team. It feels great to strive as a team and be successful as a team. And now you have a group of people who have this shared experience with you, and that will last you your whole lifetime. These will be people that you will probably keep in touch with for a really long time. So it's really rewarding, and do it as much as you can.
Thank you. Our last question is for Ms. Lynch. What influence does the Medical Science Academy, or MSA, have in fostering a new generation of scientists?
I think that MSA, I kind of have said this already, but the exposure, it's not just the content, but it's the exposure to the community that's really the key. It's not just what we do in the classroom that inspires kids. They start to get engaged in their own interests within the community. And that's, I would say, where the magic happens, where they're owning it for themselves and they're driving their own interests and start to create their own experiences or have their own relationships. So I guess I would look at it as a launching pad, and I always say to my MSA students, well, you're going to come back, right? Because I have guest speakers come in, and I basically am saying to them, we bring in experts, we bring people with a certain expertise here to expose you to all the possibilities in medicine, and whether that's clinical or research, but I want that for you, and I want you to now come back when you are an expert, or when you finish your undergrad or get your medical degree, or so yeah, I mean, that ultimately that's the goal, and that's the most rewarding part. So it's just it's if I want that for every student, right? For them to find what they find passionate, or what's their intrinsic motivation, when it doesn't feel like work, they're ignited by it, and this little light bulb goes off and they kind of get excited. And then they want to pursue something, or they want to seek out more opportunities. That's really the best. So it's been really rewarding, and that's my goal for them is for them to go find what makes them kind of tick, or what find their passion, find their interests, and then like the women here, share it with other people, right? Because if you enjoy it, then you want to share what your knowledge is, and share your experience and foster it in other people too. So that's what I would say about that.
Thank you all for tuning into our virtual Women in STEM panel, and I want to thank all our speakers for taking their time to be with us today.
We would also like to thank KBEV producers for recording, editing, and producing our event, and for being so helpful throughout this process. And we hope to see you all at our next Women in STEM event. Thank you for watching.